The Fearful Squirrel. There once was a squirrel named Snuggie. Snuggie was a very sweet little squirrel. He was always kind to his fellow squirrels, was very smart when it came to evading trouble, and could climb higher than most all of his friends. Snuggie was well loved in his neck of the woods, which was a good thing when the cold weather would come. You see, the squirrels spend a lot of time in fall and early winter foraging for food and digging holes in various places to hide it for when they need it later when there is less food available. They are smart little critters that know they will need to store away food for the winter and have a remarkable memory for where they have hidden their stash even months later. Although many squirrels are spry little creatures who have lots of energy for foraging and hiding their food stores, every now and again you will come across a lazy squirrel like Buster. Buster was a big fat squirrel who preferred to find a low limb on a tree to sprawl out and take a nap on than to run around gathering and hiding nuts. When he wasn't snoozing, Buster would oftentimes find a high perch to sit upon and watch out over the area to see where the hard-working squirrels were hiding their stash. Then later he would climb down when the squirrels had moved on to another area, dig up the supply, and stuff himself eating the treasure. Not to be mean, but just because it was easy. Snuggie had heard about Buster's mischievous antics and grew more and more concerned about his hidden stash of nuts and things. Some of his squirrel buddies had gotten burned by Buster's thievery in the past and had to spend more time and energy to replace their caches, making it for an exhausting fall and winter. Snuggie was overly worried about his stash being robbed and had gotten in the habit of digging even when he had nothing to stash away in attempts to trick Buster, making him think he was stowing away something when really he wasn't, just to throw him off his game. He grew gradually more and more fearful of his stash being found and would spend his whole day digging holes. There was nothing wrong with doing that aside from becoming a bit of a laughingstock amongst the squirrel population in that area for being so fearful. Until February rolled around that next winter. It had been an extra desolate winter, and the hidden nuts became crucial to the survival of the squirrels that year. This was the time when the squirrels would need to go dig up their buried treasure. But the problem for Snuggie was that he had buried so many fake stashes that he had a hard time remembering what were his actual stashes and what were just fake outs to fool Buster. Poor Snuggie's fear had gotten the best of him, and now he risked starving to death all because he had been scared of Buster stealing his food. Snuggie grew very skinny and frail from the lack of food by the time March rolled around. He was barely hanging on. Many of the other squirrels felt bad to see Snuggie wasting away, but they were too busy trying to keep themselves fed to do anything about it. Then one cold March morning, a big strong squirrel appeared in the doorway to the hole where Snuggie's nest was, and said,
"Don't worry, Mr. Snuggie. I won't let anything happen to you. I brought you some of my stash. Eat it up, and I will bring you some more every morning until you are well enough to forage for food again. You'll be okay."
Snuggie was so famished that he couldn't even thank this mysterious visitor. The squirrel left a good supply of nuts and went on his way. And as promised, he returned every day bringing more nourishment for Snuggie. After about a week of this life-saving kindness, Snuggie was doing better and feeling like himself again. He was ready to get back out there. But before he could leave the nest that day, the generous mystery squirrel showed up to deliver his daily sustenance to Snuggie. When he appeared that morning in the entrance to Snuggie's nest, Snuggie was startled to realize this was no stranger. The kind and generous squirrel who had saved his life was actually Buster. He looked different because over the barren months he didn't eat as much as usual and had lost quite a bit of his stored fat. A lot of the food he had brought to Snuggie during his time of need had been food he had taken over the summer months from some of Snuggie's hiding spots. It turned out that Buster was not someone to fear, nor should he have feared starving to death as he had for so long. All his fear had done was kept him from making friends with Buster, who he had made assumptions about that weren't true. He had decided that Buster was a mean and lazy squirrel only out for himself, when in reality Buster was just misunderstood and lived a life by a different strategy than most. But when it came down to it, by Buster storing up all that extra fat that made him appear lazy to Snuggie, he was the only squirrel equipped with enough extra energy to make it through the long winter without having to spend all his effort on his own survival, so he was able to take the time to care about Snuggie and save his life. And in regards to Snuggie's fear of starving to death, the reality was, and is, that by being such a sweet and lovable critter, there would always be an angel like Buster to appear and come to his aid. Buster and Snuggie became the best of friends and looked after one another for the rest of their days. Snuggie didn't spend his days digging meaningless holes any longer, because without those fears he had been carrying around, he was able to live a fun, relaxed squirrel life, enjoying the blessings that each day brought. Let the life of Snuggie the Squirrel be a lesson to you. Sometimes your fears are unfounded, and if you let them take root, you might spend your days spinning your wheels getting nowhere. And sometimes what you fear could turn out to be one of your biggest blessings. You can spend your whole life digging holes to store your treasures in, or you can spend your life enjoying the treasures and sharing them with friends. It's up to you. Just don't let fear be the deciding factor.